This time on Deep Double Analysis, I'm going to be looking at COVID-19 and flu statistics, hopefully to illustrate why many of us are so skeptical about what we're being told, specifically about why the lockdowns must occur.
First, I think it's very important to know that the COVID-19 pandemics just has accelerated certain trends which we had seen before and which actually were discussed in Davos this year, like the lack of inclusion, the lack of paying sufficient attention to the environment. So what we will see now is acceleration of those trends, and of course, a unique opportunity to reset our global agenda, to do something about all those negative developments. I include also the lack of international cooperation. Because if we don't address those issues, we will end up in a much worse world than we are today. So let's use this window of opportunity and let's recreate a global framework which really is in line with the requirements of a society in the 21st century.
Today, I want to go through a recent article that came out, which I find very interesting. I only want to talk about a few specific parts, but I highly encourage you to read this entire article, search the terms and the people that are in the article, and draw your own conclusions like I have. The article starts off by talking about how there are a lot of people available for a flu shot this year, but there's one problem: the flu seems to have all but vanished. So why is that? According to the WHO and other sources around the world, flu cases have almost completely disappeared this year. In Australia, just 14 positive flu cases were recorded in April, compared to 367 in the same month last year. That is a 96% drop. By June, usually the peak of the flu season in Australia, there were none. There were 0 cases recorded in the month of June in Australia. 0. That is not just a 96% drop, that is a 100% drop. And then here it says in Chile, just 12 cases of the flu were detected between April and October. And in 2019, there were 7,000 cases reported during the same period. In South Africa, the tests picked up just 2 cases at the beginning of the season. That's a 99% drop compared to the previous year. In the UK here, only 767 cases have been reported compared to the 7,000 cases from last year. Are you starting to see a pattern yet? Further down the article, it says that according to Public Health England, globally it's estimated that flu rates may have plunged by 98% compared to this time last year. So where has the flu gone? And what does this mean for winter? Yeah, that's a good question, isn't it? Where has the flu gone? And that brings me to what I want to talk about next. According to the CDC, under diagnosing flu, how do I know if I have the flu? Your respiratory illness might be the flu if you have fever, cough, sore throat, runny or stuffy nose, body aches, headache, chills, and or fatigue. Some people may have vomiting and diarrhea. People may be sick with flu and have respiratory symptoms without a fever. What's important, I believe, is the second half of this, which says influenza can occur outside of typical flu season. In addition, other viruses can cause respiratory illnesses similar to the flu. So it is impossible to tell for sure if you have flu based on symptoms alone. Now, let's shift over also on the CDC's website and take a look at how they know if you have the novel coronavirus. And here we are at the CDC's COVID-19 page. Symptoms of coronavirus, what you need to know. People with COVID-19 have a wide range of symptoms, ranging from mild to severe illness. Fevers, chills, cough, shortness of breath, difficulty breathing, fatigue, muscle or body aches, headache, loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, diarrhea, vomiting. Well, gee, what does that sound like, huh? Almost exactly the same symptoms, the same presenting symptoms as the flu. And you might ask me, Yizz, where are you going with this? Bear with me till the end, pretty please. Back on the main article now, it says, there are those who claim flu cases haven't vanished at all, but are instead being recorded as C19. Skeptics say COVID tests are unable to distinguish between coronavirus and flu, but this is simply untrue. Yes, that part is untrue. I don't believe that under a microscope, such as Dr. Elizabeth Gropelli says, that one would mistake the flu and COVID-19. They look different. They are clearly not the same virus. But that is not what people look for. This is media misdirection. This is not about how people get classified as a corona death or a corona case. This is not about how people get classified as a flu death or a flu case. This is misdirection. It says, oh, well, doctors would not ever make the mistake of saying that a COVID virus and a flu virus under a microscope are the same. Oh, heavens, no. Okay, yeah, well, that's not what happens with diagnosing, is it? We already know from reading earlier in the article that the way they determine what is flu and what isn't is with observation, what they call surveillance testing. They cluster symptoms around patients and then extrapolate the data and do very few actual tests. And if that's the case, then where have all the flus gone? They have simply been misdiagnosed or purposefully, in my opinion, diagnosed instead of flu, COVID. So scrolling down here further in the article, we see someone named Dr. Ellen Foxman says, one virus can only disrupt the spread of another if enough people have it. We are talking about common colds. The rates are astronomically high and many people are asymptomatic. But for COVID at present, we think only 15 to 20% of the people in hard-hit places have been exposed. Most places are lower than that. That is not enough to prevent flu interference, to account for the huge drops in flu numbers that we are seeing in statistics. So here we have a doctor from Yale saying that even if you account for how one virus can interfere with another, it does not explain for the massive reduction in flu cases. Now I want to transfer us over to something political and financial. U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention Director Robert Redfield acknowledged during a House hearing Friday that COVID-19 data could be inflated because hospitals receive monetary gains by reported COVID-19 cases. Republican Rep. Blaine Luetkemeyer of Missouri questioned Redfield during a House Oversight and Reform Subcommittee on COVID-19. He asked about the perverse incentive for hospitals to classify deaths as being corona-related when the virus didn't cause death. Luetkemeyer voiced concern about how an automobile accident-related death could be recorded as COVID. In this scenario, the death was recorded as COVID-related because the virus was simply in the victim's system, even if the car accident was the major factor. And here is a quote. As long as you have COVID in your system, you get to claim it as a COVID death, which means you get more money as attending physician, hospital, whatever, Luetkemeyer said during the hearing. Would you like to comment on that, about the perverse incentive? Is there an effort to try and do something different here? Redfield responded by telling the congressman, I think you're correct in that, and we've seen this in other disease processes too. In the HIV epidemic, somebody may have a heart attack but also have HIV. The hospital would prefer that the DRG, the death report, be for HIV because there's greater reimbursement. So I do think there is reality to that. To turn to what someone official in Australia has to say. Dr. Strain, an Australian doctor, a virologist, says that the total number of corona cases in Australia was 27,500 in a population of nearly 25 million. So the idea that COVID is crowding out the flu when rates are low and there's a high degree of compliance with lockdown measures is nonsensical. He believes there is no way that COVID is interfering with flu numbers. It goes on to say, Another question is whether we can trust the flu data at all, as most officials say that global figures are not robust as corona surveillance took priority in laboratories and facilities. What does that mean? That means if you are surveilling and looking for flu, and all of a sudden there's this mind cancer panic and everyone's shitting their pants over COVID, then the officials and the people that are watching are going to be looking for COVID. And when you look for something that you want to see, when it shares the same symptoms as the other thing that you normally are looking for, you're going to see the thing that's prioritized in your mind. All of these people, all throughout the West, that normally would be surveilling and looking for flu, which, as we saw earlier, except for one or two little things, has the exact same symptom cluster, they're going to label it as corona instead of flu. If the pressure from government and media and financial incentives are focused on COVID, then the limited number of staff and facilities are going to provide COVID data instead of flu data.
Awfully quiet, Mr. Mulder. I'm wondering which lie to believe.
On the CDC's website, we can see the breakdown of COVID deaths themselves. It says all ages we're looking at 207,882 deaths up to current day, the vast majority of which occur to people who are 65 and older. Scrolling down to section 3 for the comorbidities breakdown, which I have done a video on previously, link will be in the description, as well as the pop-up here in the corner, you will see that the vast majority of COVID deaths are connected to issues that are already life-threatening the elderly anyway. And what kills the elderly in massive numbers? What do we get shots for every flu season to prevent the death of the elderly and those who are already plagued by other problems? The flu. And what has gone massively underdiagnosed and underreported this year? The flu. So could it be that all of these deaths, or the vast majority of them, are simply flu deaths that are called COVID deaths? I think that is entirely possible. And even if I'm wrong, even if the flu, for some reason of medicine or science that I don't know and that hasn't been revealed yet, has led to a legitimate disappearance of the flu, we are still seeing a massive nosedive in the number of corona counts and corona deaths. Even if everything I said today happens to be wrong, we still are seeing a massive decline in corona deaths and corona cases. I think that we must end the lockdown and we must say no to the encroachment of this corona mind disease. Because in my opinion, the psychological and sociological effects of this pandemic and the lockdown insanity that has ensued because of it are far more damaging than the corona numbers plus the old flu numbers combined.
I don't know how it will play out in November, but what we know is that we will end up with many more unemployed, and particularly also people in the gray economy, which are not counted for, who lose their jobs. So we will see definitively a lot of anger already now, but probably increased by the end of the year, because this crisis will be with us until we really have found a remedy. So we have to prepare for a more angry world. And how to prepare? It means to take the necessary action to create a fairer world, to see that we provide everybody with decent access to the health system, that we make sure that those people who are really left behind, and I'm not speaking only on national levels, I'm speaking also internationally. If I see now the tragedy in some of the emerging countries like South Africa, like some countries in East Asia, I think it's all, I don't have too many remedies. The remedies have to be discussed through dialogue by the stakeholders of our global system. But I just see the need for such a dialogue, and I see the need for action. I see the need for a great reset.
So in closing, I invite you to look into everything that I've shared here today. Reminder that all the links to everything I've talked about will be in the description below. I'd like to hear back from you. What do you think? Anything that you think might help in combating this mind virus of this, what I believe to be either completely fake or purposefully manipulative pandemic. Share with me below. Do you think I'm wrong about anything I've said here today? I want to hear that too. I welcome criticism and challenge to the things I've brought up today. Please tell me in the comments down below, and if you want to invite me onto a live stream to debate any of this or just to share information that I've come across, let me know. You can contact me in many ways, which are in my About tab. As always, please share this information. It is critically important that our people know what's going on. We cannot let our liberties, our markets, our lives themselves to be domineered by some control group that wants to use our fears and the illusion of medical science against us. As always, keep heart, speak the truth, and God bless.